Good morning. It is Monday morning, and like most Monday mornings, a little slow getting started. So we are, 2 minutes late. Sorry about that. So welcome to Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. We are back doing dungeon tiles. If you might recall, on Friday, I base coated a ton of these in the blue color. I think there were 30 of them all together, if I remember playing around with decimals and fractions and things, and started to paint the accent blocks with and without. And I need to do something about the camera because it's kind of tilted, but we'll play with that in a few minutes. Today is going to be a shorter session, probably like a half session. Somehow so that what I'm doing is mostly on camera most of the time. It's going to be a little shorter session. What I'm going to do today is finish up painting the accent on this pile of tiles. Okay, managed to throw that off. The camera's just not happy with its location today. There we are. Maybe it'll stay there. So I'm going to finish those. Then we'll see if I'm going to get any washing done at all or not. It depends on the time, but I'm kind of planning to wrap up around noon today because, you know, it's Monday. Just for the rest of the week and early next week, Nikki or Alexis will be taking over. We kind of take turns on this, and my turn has lasted a very long time. So other than the Christmas special, I guess I've been doing this for like a month or two or something. It's been a long, long time since either of them has had a chance to do this stream. So starting on Wednesday, either Nikki or Alexis will be picking this up for at least a couple of stream sessions. And then I'll, when they get tired of it, or after a few sessions, I'll be back and I'll be doing some more tiles because it looks like there's many, many more tiles, many, 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 many more tiles that need to be done, especially in the gray base color. So this will be going for a while. But today, I'm just going to be working on accent blocks. Got the paint stirred up already. This dark brown. Get it in a little tray, get the brush out. Hydrate. And we will slowly work through the remainder of these. And then we'll see what time it is and decide either to wrap up then or maybe do a little bit of washing. We will see. I want to thank everybody who is watching this either on the stream or on YouTube later. Your participation and support for Dice and Dungeons is most welcome, so thank you. This is an inside corner, so I'm not going to be too terribly chatty today because it's Monday. There is football weekend and continuing until tonight as the NFL gets into its playoffs. What are there? 6 wild card games, right? There's 4 divisions in each conference, so there's 8 divisions. And they could just go with the division leaders. Okay, because that, 4 is an even number, so you can divide the teams up and have the division leaders play against each other. And quite a while ago, that was actually, well, it depends. Before an expansion, there used to be 3 divisions in each conference, and there was 1 wild card team. Because, you know, either you have 1 playoff game, well, another team gets a bye, or you add a 4th team. And that's what they did, and that kind of made sense, because sometimes the team with the second best record in one of the divisions was a better record than one of the teams that was a division leader. And that happened, you know, with enough frequency that it made sense to reward that team with the opportunity to play in the playoffs. So the wild card started, if I recall correctly, way back when there were 3 divisions in each conference, and there was a sense of unfairness that teams that might have won like 3 or 4 more games than one of the other division leaders was not in the playoffs when that other team was. And then there was an expansion to 4 divisions. Yeah, I mean, I could have just let that go, but you had the same problem. In fact, it was even exaggerated. Some you could have like 2 or 3 teams that had a better record than one of the division leaders, which actually kind of happened this year, because, you know, it's possible to win your division with a losing record. Like 2 wildcard teams, and the division leaders with the 2 division leaders with the worst 2 records could play in them. We just have more and more teams in the playoffs. Why not? More games. I'm just trying to decide which ones to paint here. Yeah, so you want to keep the number of games kind of even. Three wild cards that get in, and they play with the 3 division leaders. The only one that gets a bye is the division leader that had the best record. And they get home field advantage too, so it gives them some incentive to play well during the regular season. Oh my, okay, completely off camera. I wasn't paying attention while I was starting to paint, so let's just reboot here. Well, you got to see me talk, and I don't know, I might have been painting, maybe not. You never know. Now you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, so there's 5 games already, and there's another one tonight. And then that finally narrows it down to 8 teams, 4 games next weekend, and then 2 the weekend after that, and finally you get the Super Bowl. Survivors of those playoffs that meet. So I would say that, you know, this year it's really weird. I mean, sometimes there's upsets, right? But this year, there aren't any teams that are really outstanding to be upset. Virtually any team, it looks like, can beat any other team. So I don't know. It might just be a random thing this year. Who's having a good day? Who's having a bad day? Team with a fairly mediocre regular season record to do well. In fact, it happened a couple of years in a row way back when. The Green Bay Packers came in as like the lowest seeded team. I think they were like one game above 500. Yeah, they had a lot of injuries. They won all the road games and won the Super Bowl. And I think it was next year or the year after, they were essentially undefeated. They were like 13-1 or something. We had the home field advantage, and the New York Giants came in with the worst record in the playoffs. And they beat Green Bay's essentially unbeaten team at home in Green Bay, which was unheard of, and then they went on to win the Super Bowl. So it's quite possible for a team that didn't do well in the regular season to do really well in the playoffs, and that might happen again this year. Okay, well, it's the rough stone. Those are the inside corners. I think everything else I've got here, yeah, it's one other rough stone. I'm going to do those first. Marking them on the front and the back so that I get the same blocks. The idea here is that a block of a different kind of stone has been inserted into the wall. And since the block goes all the way through the wall, it makes sense that it would be the same color front and back. Know, flip it over, which one of those blocks gets the alternate highlight color. Anyway, most of the games were really close. Coming down to whatever happened in the last couple of minutes, and that made for, kind of exciting football. I can't say that I was extremely impressed by the play of any of the teams. But there were some kind of weird games, like what was it? Jacksonville and so they were behind 27-0 at the half. Had made like 5 turnovers or something, and we're not looking all that together. And then they ended up winning 31-30. 31-30, so like were in the second half was like 31-3. It was two totally different games, with one team dominating the other in the different halves. So there's probably some old coach who said something profound like you got to play the whole game, or it's not over till it's over, or something like that. And that was definitely the case in that game, where a team came back from 27-point deficit, not looking terribly good in terms of their level of play, and then ending up winning. So yeah, most of the games were pretty close. Didn't know who was going to win until the last couple of minutes of each of the games, sometimes the last couple of seconds. I guess that's good, if the teams are all evenly matched like that. But it means there's really, I can't say there's any real favorite, because it looks like anybody could beat anybody, including the two teams that got byes, the ones with the best records. The teams that they're playing would be the lowest seeded teams left in the playoffs. Ranked 6th or 7th or whatever playoffs. Still, they could end up being beaten, even though they're playing at home. So that's what happened this weekend. Is there was football on, and chores around the house, lots of chores. Rehearsal for this song. Didn't rehearse this at all. Didn't think of anything to talk about. I'll ask for a flip. I will do a flip when I'm done with this roll. That's what Mondays are for. Sighing. It's like, even though I'm retired and one day is pretty much the same as the next, there's just something about a Monday that is just a Monday. It is what it is. I wonder, I've never worked a different schedule other than the regular Monday through Friday kind of thing. I know that there are many people who work a different kind of schedule where their weekend, so to speak, is like Monday and Tuesday, or who knows, Wednesday and Thursday, maybe not even 2 days in a row. But for those Monday through Friday schedule, yeah, Monday is a Monday. What can I flip? Something unbreakable. I think I flipped this once before. It's kind of a large thing to flip. I flipped the drying towel before. I'm not really finding anything here to flip. Tweezers. There's a pair of tweezers. It's over here. You put the end over end, or you can rotate it like that. Different kinds of flipping. These are cut stone blocks. They look actually really quite different than the rough stone blocks. They're fancier kinds of castles and things. Just picking out some spots. Putting on the edge there. That's going to get painted last because I tend to grab it on the ends. I don't want to grab it there when it's got wet paint all over it. Easier to paint because the edges are raised up higher from the mortar joints. It's easier to get the paint up to the edge without it getting onto the adjacent blocks or into the mortar joints. So it doesn't mean I'll be doing this any faster. I'm working at a leisurely pace today. Say leisurely. You say leisurely, I say leisure. Now, one thing is I am now staying on camera. That's actually, that's pretty cool. Certainly not something I started with today. But I did look up at the monitor in time to notice that I was off camera and was able to correct it before we got too terribly far. Yeah, well, talking about football didn't get us too terribly. So, that's not terribly far. How many times can I say that now? Getting repetitive here in my phraseology. Means I'm having little to talk about today. As I mentioned at the beginning of this stream, I'll be finishing early today, going to noonish instead of 2ish. And how close we get to that depends on how quickly I finish up these accent blocks and whether I decide to do any washing today. And then starting Wednesday, because relaxing painting is, I will remind you, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 10ish until 2ish Eastern Time. Mickey or Alexis will be. Ooh, how that happened. sure if I need to get the blue paint out or whether I can wipe that off. Get it off, that's good. And the base coat stayed on, that's good. Anyway, yeah, discovered that problem. Yes. Starting Wednesday, since we stream this Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from more or less 10 to more or less 2, Nikki or Alexis will be taking over for a little while as we take turns on the stream, so he gets to meet other members of the Dice and Dungeons crew. So I expect that whoever takes up will be picking up where I leave off, which is dungeon tiles. Most likely doing gray base coating, touching up, and accent blocks. Okay, so this is kind of used up here, the paint in the well. So I'll take the opportunity to wash the brush, get the gooey paint off. Kind of. We use a couple more drops of paint. And paint some more blocks. Certainly hope the music is playing because I really have run out of things to talk about. One of these, that would make talking about decimals and fractions really easy. In fact, so easy it would probably be really dull. But I can say that this is the 5th one out of 10. So we're getting on the halfway here. And looking at the time, I'm guessing I'll probably get some washing done yet before I finish today. These walls need to dry because I don't want to put wash on wet paint. It will definitely move it around and make a mess. But I've got a whole lot of just floors. With no walls attached. And those have been just sitting about since Friday. Definitely dry, and I could wash those. And that would be helpful because it's work that needs to be done. So, assuming that things are moving along at the pace they're moving along here, I'll likely be finishing up these accent blocks and have some time to dark gray wash on the floor tiles, the ones that don't have accent blocks and are dry enough to go ahead with. There are a couple of walls that I was able to finish last Friday. Those are dry. But we'll see how the washing goes. I'll start with the floors and make sure that those are done. There's 14 of them, so there's, it's a fairly large number of things to do. At that point, we'll look at the time, how much paint is left in the well, whether the brush is all gummed up or not. Painting related variables, and make a decision at that point in time based upon the multiple variables, whether to just keep going or to finish the stream. If I choose to ignore the variables, it might just be in how do I feel? Do I feel like doing any more or not? And that might just override all of the other criteria for decision making. Okay, I'm done. Let's do 2 on the top here on this one. Okay. Do another one up there, sure. General, do between 3 and 5 on each wall. Looks like I've been doing 4, so do 5 on this one. Next one I'll do 3. Keep those numbers balanced. No, sorry for being so quiet. I don't have much to talk about. I could do a rerun talking about the football playoffs. I could talk about doing a little yard cleanup because there was actually a little bit of sun this weekend. That was a highly unusual event here in West Michigan. I can't say that it was like blazing sun, blue skies kinds of things. It was more like the clouds were thin enough so that the sunlight was bright enough to cast shadows. Didn't get terribly warm. For January it was, though. Usually the highs are still below freezing in January, but the last couple of years, and especially this year, they've been at or above freezing, usually below 40, but kind of low 30-ish anyway. It was kind of a nice day yesterday, so got to spend about an hour, a little more than an hour outside. Not freezing, not getting wet. Just doing some outdoor maintenance work. Basically clean up, like after storms. We haven't had nearly the kind of storms that they've had down south or on the west coast. But there had been, a couple of storms that came through, kind of a milder version of the one that dumped 6 feet on Buffalo. But that produced, we are out in the forest, so sticks. There's lots of sticks after something like that need to be put into other places, so there's that. So I did some of that. It was nice to be out, get some outdoor physical activity that wasn't painful. It's been a weird winter in that it has been very, very warm. Had a lot of snow way early. It's unusual to have much snow in October here, but we got a lot of snow in October, and then there was a second storm that dumped a bunch of snow. But it's been pretty much absent since then. And it's more typical this time of the year to have 1.5 feet of snow on the ground piled up in various and sundry places, and that hasn't happened. So the weather has actually been, instead of like mid-January weather, it's been end of February weather. Say what you will about global warming, it is unusual. And you would think that, having warmer than usual weather would be welcome, but it isn't, because it's not pleasant. It's really quite unpleasant. It's damp. There's a lot of humidity. It's quite cold. Cold enough to not really want to be out. You can't do winter things like ski or cross-country ski or downhill ski. Skating has to be limited to an indoor ice arena. It's not been cold enough to sustain ice outside. You definitely don't want to be like on the ponds or something. Usually during these times of the years, even though there might not be much sun, because the days are short and the cloud cover is usually pretty heavy, if there's snow on the ground, at least it looks kind of pretty. But all there is scattered piles of kind of rotten snow where it had piled up in the plowing or the shoveling. So the warmer temperatures haven't really made it any more pleasant than if it had been typically cold, snowy winter. I imagine that will change in odd times. So it'll be one of those, where you get a blizzard in October and then nothing, and then all of a sudden in March, like mid to late March, when you expect it to be starting to feel spring-like, there'll be another blizzard. Just to keep throwing people. But I do have to say that at least we are not having weather that's killing people, which is really kind of scary, like out west where there's just been constant flooding, or more recently tornadoes. It was really in the middle of January. Not even the middle of January, the first half of January, the tornadoes ripping through the south, causing fatalities. That's awful. I guess we're in a time where the storms are a little less frequent or something, but the ones are maybe more frequent, like out west, kind of freakishly frequent. One atmospheric river after the other dumping a year's worth of precipitation in a couple of weeks. So if there's going to be a storm, they're really going to stop. In places that have truly deadly weather, please forgive me for complaining about the merely yucky weather we're having here. This is one of those where there's probably maybe just enough paint left in the well to finish the top of this, or maybe there's just slightly too little. Let's see. It is looking like there's going to be, because it dries in the well, and you end up with this spot of paint that you can't use because it dries around the edges of the spot. And yeah, it's kind of a waste of paint. But there it is. It looks like I can work just enough out by squishing it in to finish this one. And there are 3 left. So I'll wash this brush again. I'm also going to re-stir this because it starts to settle. The pigment starts to settle out of the solvent, and I want to make sure it's well mixed. So just give that a go. Get the paint off of the brush. I don't want to squeeze it on top of that because it end up picking up bits of dried paint. I don't want to do that. So we'll put a little fresh blot there. weird. You can see there's a little glossiness. It's like the touch-up, the bottle that I pulled out right at the end because I had run out of the bottle I was using previously. It's exactly the same paint in terms of its label and everything, but it seems a little glossier, and it shows up like there as a bright spot. I'm just going to paint over that too. This isn't how I would usually do it, but it is. The touch-up seems to be glossier, and I hope that that is not the case for the entire bottle, because if we start using that bottle, for another whole set of dungeon tiles, we want the gloss level to be the same. Here, what could possibly cause that? Because it's medium blue flat, the same as everything else. So hadn't had that happen with any of the other paints that we'd used before. So I'm hoping that it was just kind of a weird thing because of it being just a fresh bottle and not having been mixed well or something. Okay, well, what I managed to do was not mark the blocks on the other side. Guess I'd best do that before I paint them. So this is pretty good. Miraculously, I've been staying on camera. Let's see if we can keep that going here. Anyway, yes, the weather was nice enough to actually be outside. To get some yard work done, so that was kind of a nice change of pace, actually, to be able to work outside. What I should do on this one is I was planning on one, but now I've got 2 blocks on the edge. A huge opportunity to stick my fingers in the accent block paint. Spread it around, so I'm going to try to be really careful and just hold it on the floor, which has no accent block paint on it. There. done with this one, I'm going to steer. This leg is getting a cramp. Ooh. Yeah. Is it, am I stiff because it's Monday or stiff because I'm over the hill? It's glossy. I'm block that one because that one kind of shows. So done one near the bottom. They don't really show down there, so that's not a good spot. So this is where I'll just talk about a little bit about what Dice and Dungeons is. We are a small group of people who got together to play a D&D campaign, which started, I think, like a year and a half ago, a long time ago. And we were having great fun doing that and decided that we would do two things with it. One was to stream it so that other people could enjoy our D&D campaign along with us. And that stream goes up with live chat on Sundays at 2 o'clock and is also available at YouTube, so you can catch up with some of the old stuff. The campaign is really cool, and I think we are really good players. We have a lot of fun, and we try to keep it interesting for an audience and not just for our own amusement. So I want to invite you to join Dice and Dungeons for live chat on Sundays at 2, or to catch up with it on YouTube and visit us on our Dungeons and Dragons campaign. The other thing was that our dungeon mistress always wanted a 3D printer, and so we actually got one and started producing little set pieces so that, instead of just playing on a flat grid, which we were doing, and it was fine, to lighten it up. So we started making small pieces. We did some walls, some pillars, some rocks and things, just so we could, sort of scatter them around and make the set look a little bit more interesting, especially since we started streaming it. We wanted it to look good for anybody who was watching it. And then it just grew and grew. Just, a couple of crates and chests and tents and things, maybe some chairs or whatever, to full-size dungeons with doors that opened and closed and trap tiles where you couldn't see the trap until it was triggered. And these things. And these are all produced on the 3D printers that are behind me, primed in the paint box over to my left, and then hand painted to form full dungeons. And the cool thing about these is that there are ball magnets in the base. If you look down here, there's little holes that go in the corners here. And what they do is when you put them together, I'll bring a couple out here that have the magnets installed, they hold together. And you don't have to put them like on a metal thing or whatever to hold them. The magnets rotate, so you can do whatever you want in any orientation you want, and they hold together. So that's been an innovation that our DM did, and we use those in our campaign. It's really easy to set up a specific kind of dungeon encounter, corridors, caverns and caves and castles and things with big rooms, little rooms, all that sort of stuff. It's really pretty amazing. Really looking at the possibility of making these available to people who might be interested in it. So we're pumping out a bunch of these things here. There are only so many places you can do this on top, and it's nice to have one on the top, because when you're looking at it from the top, you like to have it be some interest as well, and not just blank like this. But there's only 6 places, so I'll just do a little corner here, and maybe I'll do 2 blocks that way. Done this one. This one gets done a lot, this particular block, for some reason. Trying to make them not all look alike. Let's do one here. That looks kind of balanced. I could do this little one. Yeah, why not? We'll just do 5. Mainly because there's not enough paint to do that many. Let's see how far we get. Anyway, Dice and Dungeons has grown from just doing a D&D campaign to a producer of some really exquisite premium quality dungeon tiles used to make dungeons, in which one can do your own D&D campaign in a very realistic way. I mean, as realistic as any of this is, which isn't real at all, but nonetheless. But if you like what you're seeing as we do relaxing painting, producing yet more and more of these things, I invite you to be a sponsor. That would be amazing. And if you really like what you see either here or our D&D campaign or both, we do have a Patreon page. Link patreon.com/diceanddungeons, and you are invited to support us there. And any support is very, very much appreciated. This way. Paint starts to dry in the well. Let's get this dot of paint, which dries around the edges. See how far we can spread this. There's another source of paint without squeezing it out of the bottle, and that is the paint that builds up around the nozzle on the bottle. That would otherwise just be wasted. So if I need more, I will be scavenging it from there rather than squeezing yet more out, where it will just dry in the bowel. Today has been just almost but not quite perfect amount of paint. Crap. So yeah, I have to do the edges, and that's gone. But here, for some reason on this bottle, and not all of them, there's a lot of paint buildup on the side of the nozzle, as you can see there. And that is more than enough to finish these without squeezing more out, because in essence it is already squeezed out. Some of these do that quite a lot, you know, where it builds up around the nozzle like that. The inside of this isn't quite tight enough or something. And there are others where it doesn't have metal. I guess there's some manufacturing variation that goes on in the production of nozzles and caps. In the hundredths of a millimeter here. But I've never had it dry up inside, so whatever it is, however it's done, it doesn't dry up and like seal the cap to the bottle, which is nice, because that would be difficult. Let's see, I need to get this one. Okay, make sure I got all of the, I painted some on the edges, quite a few on the edges on that one, so I had to make sure I got it all, and I did. So now I'm going to cap this up, since I took the paint off the nozzle, and try to more thoroughly clean this brush, because there's a lot of buildup here at the top of the bristles. And it looks like I am at a halfway through point of my halfway stream today. As I mentioned earlier, I'm only going to go till about noon today, because I have things that must be done this afternoon, and Nikki or Alexis will be picking up the stream later this week and into early next week, as we get back into a little bit of a rotation, taking turns, so that we all have an opportunity to do relaxing painting. Those of you who watch or listen can meet them. Well, this is just not quite getting cleaned. It's clean enough, but kind of weird. A little build up there. Going to mess with it too much. So, washing. I'm going to bring these floor tiles up. 13 of these, so there's quite a few. This will take a while. This is a mix of, these are rough stone floor tiles, and these are cut stone floor tiles. quite different texture, quite different appearance, but there's kind of a mix of them. And after they're base coated, or in the case of walls, base coated and accent painted, they're washed with a dark gray wash. And what that does, an example here, is it makes it look a whole lot less flat. So this is what it looks like unwashed. And then with a wash put on it, you can see, especially for the bricks back here, it's a contrast. It darkens it, and it makes it look less blue and a whole lot more like stone, as it should. And it brings out the texture of it, both on the floor and the walls. So there's, you know, a pretty significant difference, especially with the blue. So for this, instead of the little brush that I've been using, I use a nice, this gigantically brush. This has a pretty stiff bristle on it. It holds the wash. It holds quite a lot of it, actually. It soaks it up like a sponge. But what it especially does is it lets me get it spread evenly on these tiles, because I don't want blots or splotches all over the place. I want it to look like uniform stone, kind of worn and dirty maybe, but not spotted. You'll have to bear with me here. This is the wash. It's probably about half done. The wash has a lot more solvent compared to pigment. The ratio is much higher on the solvent side, so that it's kind of transparent rather than full coverage like that, because you want the base color to show through. But it also has a tendency to settle. The pigment settles in the bottom, and what we discovered the hard way using this is that unless it's really, really thoroughly mixed all the time, as you get near the bottom, you get a whole lot darker than it was near the top. So this is going to get a good stir on our little stirrer there. And I am going to put on a glove, because the wash, as I hold this, will get all over me. In this case, it's not too bad because the whole thing's getting washed, and when I touch it with the glove, the wash gets on the glove and then gets on the surface, and it's right where it needs to be anyway. So that works okay. When I painted the base coat on these, I put them on a sticky tack holder, one of these things like that, which allowed me to get the corners, but I still had to pull it off. It needed to be retouched. But with the wash, it's not quite as critical. Discovered that you can touch it with the gloved hands with the wash on it, and it doesn't show. Anyway, you're going to have to listen to the stirring thing, stir things up. Almost a minute. And after about, I'll dump some in a well, start using it. And after about 2 of those applications, I stir it again, because as it's sitting, even as it's just sitting there, it will settle and change the look it has. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do these 4 cut stones first. I want to get those going, and especially the cut stones need to be... I just need to be careful to get the wash uniform across it. Because the cut stones, even more, I mean, the rough stones, you know, if you get some dark spots on this, it's not too bad because it's designed to be a rough stone. But the cut stones, they're designed to be uniform in color. So look at this. I want to get it down in here. The gap, make sure it's dark in the gap there, and then we'll spread it across. Yeah, we want it to pool up a little bit in the little divots. You can see that, you know, I'm going to get the sides and edges as well, so I'm going to hold it on the corners. Or maybe do this, just do it. Time to make sure that it's uniform. What happened here is that it got too dark. So by brushing it more than once, I was getting too much on. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to daub it, and that will get rid of some of the excess. We want it dark, but not too dark, and we want, because these are interchangeable, and you can, these are designed so that if you have one cut stone dungeon set and another cut stone dungeon set, you can combine them. We want them to be pretty uniform in color, and so having done bunches of these, I just found that it's... Anyway, yeah, need to do that with it, is just brush it across once and then in the opposite direction to make sure it's getting in all the areas you want it. And then not get too much more on it, because the whole thing will become too dark then. I'm hoping that these will come out looking like the one that was done earlier. Technique worked okay, and I was doing the ones before, so hoping that we get the same effect. I guess we will find out when they dry and everything gets compared to everything else. And a little variation is okay. The stone isn't perfectly uniform, right? But I want it to look kind of like a natural variation. So yeah, I'm going to wash these floor tiles, and that'll probably be all we're going to do today, because most of the accent blocks are still drying. So those are the 4 stone tiles that we had, and they look, from what I can see, they look okay. Elf stone is really different I want to get a bunch of wash down in there. So I'll do that first with a pretty heavy brush and then swirl it around. There's a lot of texture on this. These tend to be a little less uniform and sometimes a little darker, just because of the, space here between the stones. Get color on the top because there's a lot of texture there. We'll do the same thing, brush across. Get the sides. And the sides on this are a little more important because they include these corners and things that don't show quite the same on the cut stone ones. See, it's a little bit spottier, but that's the kind of stone it is. There's more texture in there that you want picked up. An effort to get it uniform, still pick up some of the contours and textures of the cut of the rough stone. Getting the edges there and the corners where the under layer, I guess, shows through. Well, yeah, it's a little spottier, but that's kind of what we want to look, how we want it to look with the rough stone. So I said at the beginning here, the pigment will tend to settle, and what we'll do is change the color. And so after every 2 sets of drops, give it a re-stir just to make sure that I don't end up with the wash that's like 3 times darker than what I started with, and that would make it really hard to maintain any kind of uniformity. Do another one. And sometimes it just becomes difficult. What I've learned is once you brushed it, don't go back and brush it again, because that's when it'll start to pile up on you. He's done. And then we finish for the day. In this case, it's kind of piled up down between the blocks, but that's a good thing because you want it darker there. As goes along, it becomes less liquid, a little darker. It builds up on the brush. Yeah, it's kind of a tricky thing to get it looking not yucky. That means I'm more successful than others. The idea is to keep them, fairly uniform, and to not have like one that's much darker than the others or lighter than the others. That happened with one of these once. I think it was cut stone tile that it was just way darker than any of the others, and had to pretty much just re-base coat the whole thing. Got the blue paint out, re-based the whole thing, started over with it. That time it turned, the second time around it turned out okay. Fortunately, with paint, it is possible to do a do-over, especially with these paints that level really well and don't show brush marks, especially on these rougher surfaces. If worst came to worst, you just redo the entire set. Not the most fun way to spend your time redoing work, but if something didn't come out well, it can be fixed. Because there's a lot of wash on the brush there. I just wanted to get some of it off, and I did that by putting it on the side surface. Okay, you get 2 more of these. Yeah, and end up mixed all the wall tiles together when I push them off to the side, so I do not know without touching them, which I don't really want to do, which ones are dry and which ones aren't. So we will in fact be finishing before noon. Get this one done, and there's one more to go. See? It's not quite enough. Maybe just enough. This one could make look. It was a little dark. I guess it's going to be okay. It's really ambitious. I am not that ambitious today. We have this throne that I had painted last week, where it's done in stone and stone, the gray stone and the blue stone. And this has to be washed, but it has to be washed with great care because I don't want to get the wash on all the gold. And what I thought was, well, you paint the gold because the gold will get on the stone and the stone will have to be retouched up. And if I wash the stone before I paint the gold, then the touch-up will have to be touched up, and that could be difficult to get to look uniform. But as it turned out, I didn't get that much gold onto the underlying stone, and I should have just washed this whole thing when I just had the gray and the blue base coats put on before I started doing the embellishment. But I didn't. And I'm not going to go back and repaint the whole thing, the base coats, so at some point, we'll just have to get like a little brush with a little bit of wash and just very, very carefully wash around it. But I'm not going to do that today. And here, that's a weird looking, odd little flaw. I have no clue how that happened. So I'm going to get the blue paint out. Put it up now that I'm seeing it. Now this is going to be kind of a test of this bottle, because this is the bottle that started giving the glossier look than the bottle of the paint before. And I want it to blend. It's supposed to be exactly the same paint, right? Good. I want it to blend in. So it looks like something just dripped on there. Anyway, I'm going to take this bottle, tiny little bits of paint, and I want to paint over with the correct color. See when it goes on, because it's wet. Definitely don't wish for it to be glossier after dropping. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, so I get to clean this brush again. I get to put this aside. Yeah, I managed to get wash on my thumb somehow. And this does not wash off. The wash doesn't wash off very easily, so that's going to be a little bit of a hand cleaning challenge here when we're done. Yeah. So other than a little bit of burbling on about nothing in particular, what I'm going to try to do is clean this brush as much as I can. And we're going to call it a day today, because there really isn't anything else I can work on. I just really need to leave those walls dry before I start putting wash on them. Otherwise, I'd probably go ahead and try to finish those in the next half hour. So I'm going to apologize for the really brief, relaxing painting today. I was planning to go until about noon, but the timing on the material that I'm working with just didn't work out quite right. I'm looking at those and going, I really should take a half hour and finish those up, but I really can't. Nope, not unless I know it's drawing. So, thank you for watching. Please feel free to become a sponsor. Tell your friends and relatives all to become sponsors. Watch our Dungeons and Dragons campaign Sundays at 2. Join us again for relaxing painting on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 10ish until 2ish, except for today where we're ending early. You will be seeing Nikki or Alexis over the next couple of sessions. They're going to be taking over while I take a little break from this. Yeah, thanks again. See you soon.